Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're preparing for childbirth right now, or maybe you know someone who is, you already know that this incredible journey, well, it can also feel absolutely overwhelming. Today, we're diving straight into a deeply profound historical and spiritual source, Surah Maryam. We're going to unpack the stories and themes woven into this text, drawing directly from the verses to uncover a really remarkable guide for navigating the physical and, honestly, the emotional turbulence of pregnancy.
So, I have a question for you. Have you ever felt like the fear of childbirth is just beyond your endurance? I want to speak directly to that feeling for a second because it is so completely normal. The physical weight, the crazy hormonal shifts, and the looming uncertainty of labor, it creates this heavy burden that makes the whole process feel incredibly daunting. But here's the thing, you are not alone in this fear. In fact, as we'll see in our source material today, feelings of extreme vulnerability during pregnancy are recognized, validated, and met with the most profound divine empathy.
Let's move right into Section 1, the boundless mercy of God. Before we even get to the specific stories of pregnancy and birth, we really need to understand the overarching theme of the text we're examining today. And what's truly fascinating here is how frequently the name Ar-Rahman appears in the source text. It literally translates to the most merciful. And it isn't just used once or twice, It's like a recurring heartbeat throughout the entire chapter. It essentially wraps the whole narrative in a warm blanket of divine compassion. So when you're feeling anxious about your baby or your changing body, this recurring name is meant to serve as an anchor, assuring you of a continuous, tender, and intensely personal care. The text actually opens with this precise framing, a reminder of the mercy of your Lord to his servant Zechariah. This immediately sets the tone. It shows us that the divine intervention we're about to witness is born entirely out of pure mercy toward human vulnerability. It's not about passing some grueling test. It's literally about receiving grace when you are at your absolute weakest.
Which brings us to Section 2, Zechariah's Prayer, the Impossible Hope. Now, Zechariah's story illustrates a really beautiful contrast. On one hand, you have this harsh physical reality. His bones are weak, his hair is white with age, and his wife is barren. Medically, biologically, it's just impossible, right? But on the other hand, his unshakable faith speaks up. I have never been unblessed in my invocation to you, my Lord. He fully acknowledges his fragile human body, but he places his absolute, unwavering trust in God's ability to provide. For any mother out there facing medical anxieties or difficult diagnoses, Zechariah's mindset is basically a masterclass in holding space for both physical reality and ultimate spiritual hope.
And God actually answers this impossible prayer. He grants Zechariah a son, Yahya, or John, and gives him this beautiful, calming sign, 3 nights of silence. He was physically unable to speak to the people for 3 nights, creating a period of quiet reflection and spiritual retreat. And the ultimate reassurance given to him in the text is this simple but earth-shattering phrase. When you feel your body is just incapable, remember that reshaping reality is simple for the Creator. He simply tells him, "It is easy for me."
Now let's turn to Section 3, Mariam and the Pains of Labor.
So we shift now from Zechariah to the raw, deeply human experience of Mariam, Mary, the mother of Jesus. Just take a second to imagine the intense isolation she must have felt. The text tells us she withdrew to a distant place. She wasn't just carrying a child, she was carrying the immense emotional dread of what society would say about her unprecedented pregnancy. This completely validates every modern mother who feels lonely, terrified, or misunderstood today. Even if she happens to be surrounded by a whole team of doctors and family members in a high-tech hospital room, the internal isolation of labor is a very real thing.
As the contractions force her to the trunk of a palm tree, she utters this truly devastating line. I wish I had died before this and was long forgotten. Let that sink in for a moment. This is one of the most revered women in history, chosen by God, and she is at her absolute breaking point. Feeling overwhelmed, defeated, or terrified by labor pains is a human reality. It is definitely not a lack of faith. Her inclusion of this raw despair in the sacred text is a profound comfort, It tells every mother that breaking down is okay. You are allowed to feel the pain.
Moving on to Section 4, Divine Care at the Time of Birth.
But the story doesn't end in despair. Right in her moment of absolute breaking, Mariam is given this beautiful, step-by-step divine prescription. First, a voice calls out to her saying, "Do not grieve." So emotional relief comes first. Second, she's told to shake the trunk of the palm tree. That's action, it's physical grounding. And third, eat, drink, and be comforted. Physical nourishment. This whole sequence is offered during her heaviest contractions, showing that God cares deeply about both her spiritual state and her immediate physical needs. And notice the rich sensory details provided in her moment of need. A cool stream of water is placed directly beneath her, fresh, ripe dates, which, by the way, modern science now tells us are actually incredible for labor and aiding cervical dilation, fall gently to her. These aren't just historical facts to memorize, guys. These beautiful sensory details serve as powerful metaphors for the unexpected sustenance, energy, and strength God provides to mothers today. Even out in the wilderness, she was provided for perfectly.
Let's look at Section 5, the prophets as role models in patience. What's really remarkable here is that the text shows the expectant mother she is part of a long, noble lineage of believers. Ibrahim, Musa, Ismail, Idris, they all faced impossible trials with incredible patience. From facing down societal rejection to wandering in the desert, they endured. And by placing Maryam's story right alongside these great patriarchs, the text essentially elevates the struggles of a woman in labor to the exact same level of spiritual heroism as the great prophets defending their faith. That is huge. And despite their incredible strength, the text describes them this way. When the verses of the Most Merciful were recited to them, they fell in prostration and weeping. This captures their profound emotional connection to Ar-Rahman. It shows us that true strength isn't about being stoic or emotionless all the time. True strength allows for tears, for awe, and for complete vulnerability before the divine. If the greatest prophets wept, well, it is entirely okay for you to weep through your journey too.
Finally, let's explore Section 6, Maryam's verses as comfort for the pregnant woman. So, what does this all mean for you? How do we integrate this ancient comfort into a modern pregnancy routine? Well, you can practically transform your environment into a sanctuary of peace. Try playing the recitation of this chapter as calming, lo-fi background audio to physically soothe your nervous system. When your anxiety peaks about the baby's health or the birth itself, meditate on the name Ar-Rahman. When you fear the physical toll, remind yourself of God's words to Zechariah, "It is easy for me." And above all, accept your vulnerability just as Maryam did, knowing that God meets you in that exact place with dates, a cool stream, and endless mercy.
We're going to end by asking you to reflect on one final question. Knowing that one of the greatest women in history experienced this exact same fear and isolation, and knowing that she was met with such tender, divine care, how does it reshape your own beautiful, imminent journey into motherhood? Remember, you are not walking into that delivery room alone. You are walking in the footsteps of Mariam, wrapped in the mercy of Ar-Rahman. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I wish you immense peace on the journey ahead.